Hello and welcome to the Miniforgetfulnesssunclub. Today I'm going to read you a bit of my thesis. None of it's true, all of it's real. Hopefully by the end of it, that statement makes a little more sense. It's not just something that I wrote because it's cute and I wanted it to sound catchy to get people to go to my exhibition. I genuinely believe that. I did come to that conclusion through working on all of the paintings that I made, 27 paintings in 2.5 years, about. And I mean, it was a cute time, so let's not exclude cute from the situation, please. By all means, let's include cute, but also let's include I really mean it when I say it. None of it's true, all of it's real. And okay. Oh, first, if you are watching this on a video, just FYI, I don't know what I'm painting. I intentionally chose to do several things that I never do. I am using a dark, contrasted, very brown heavy palette where I usually use light pastels and brown. I love her, but I don't usually use her. And I'm also painting a person, which I don't also usually choose to do, mostly because it's so specific, but because I'm choosing a palette and kind of like a chunkier way of painting also than I generally do, which I have been trying to do the chunkier paintings for a few months here, but I find that humans are very easy to play with in terms of painting. Because I can empathize with the figure, it's almost like I can play around with the other things around it, and it feels like more of a game. We can joke around, and I can put you in a weird outfit, and your arm is so wiggly, haha. Whereas if I'm painting a broken down car, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to play with that. I gotta try so hard to figure it out. Anyway, that might not make sense to anybody, but whatever. Okay, I'm just gonna get into this. I'm not even gonna read you my abstract. Chapter 1. If you never touch it, it only exists in your mind. The lilacs that grow as more of a wall than a plant around that one school near my parents' suburb could exist in my mind without me ever knowing any words or understanding any concepts about them. I could be a smooth-brained baby and think about and love those lilacs. Painting is a kind of liberating I can best describe as fun, if fun also meant you are wind and the stairs are spiral and the clouds are stained glass and the birds do not talk, they sing. And I knew this when I started painting, but thinking about what to paint was not liberating. One day, though, I decided, what if I didn't think about what to paint? What if I just painted the things I see that already kind of feel the way painting feels? Okay, and that was just the intro to the first chapter. This is the second part and the bulk of the first chapter. The circle part, when you draw a flower. There are two completely identical cubes in front of you. If you hold them, they feel exactly the same. You will never see them as exactly the same, though. No matter how you arrange the cubes, you will see them as being different shapes and very likely different sizes, even though they do not have different shapes and sizes. Because the cubes cannot exist in one single space, and you can only exist in one single space, both of those cubes will always look different. Your perspective is completely and inescapably distorting. It disables you from being able to literally see the identical cubes as identical. It shows how things exist to you, but not how things are. Spheres do not follow these rules. I think what I'm saying, or another way of saying what I'm saying, is I've learned that what I have learned cannot have been learned by anyone else in the exact same way as I've learned it. The sharing of the experience will never be the experience from my perspective. And trying to achieve two identical results will never end in two identical results. The way to those results will never be identical either. If the way is never the same, there will be different understandings of the destination. This suggests there can be no true understanding of another's understanding, and therefore there is no core of understanding, and therefore there is no true. For the subject, there is only subjectivity. Bleak. I accept it, but also, what if it's not true? That seems like a good question to ask here, since the assertion that there is no core of understanding is essentially an argument for the complete absence of truth, which means maybe the absence of truth is not true. I would like it to not be true. I love the idea of truth. It feels true. A sphere does look the same, no matter whose perspective it's being seen from. Since I do not like explaining my art, it feels impossible, and I cannot explain why something feels true. It is impossible. Maybe I can use unexplainable art to explore unexplainable truth. Maybe I explore the possibility of a shared understanding between creator and audience. I acknowledge that I can't make my art feel like anything to anyone else, in the same way I can't make something true for anyone else, nor can anyone make something true for me. I experience my own art and my own truths in my own reality. To me, they are legitimate. It would be narrow of me to discount the validity of the truths in other people's realities, and I'm inclined to think that the potential for a shared understanding through art is more likely to occur if my work does not insist solely on my own perspective, but rather considers the validity of others' perspectives and adopts partial forms of these perspectives to create a more obtainable shared sense and understanding. Oh, hi, kitty. Doing this effectively for the sake of a thesis requires me to come up with some kind of definition or argument for truth. However, the word truth is a consistent paradox throughout every layer and approached at every angle. The fact that, by definition, it would be the definition, but there is no shared definition, is only one and perhaps the most appropriate paradoxical example that I could give in an attempt to define the paradox. I cannot argue for a definition of truth, and I recognize the naive entitlement of insisting on my own definition of truth. I like to think that paradoxes exist because nothing is something. Lack of truth is lack, and complete lack is nothing. Nothing cannot be understood because our way of understanding is through the somethings and the its. But nothing is not an it, and we cannot escape the it to properly comprehend it, which is something that it isn't. I knew that last little bit was maybe a bit off in the weeds, but I'm obsessed with it, okay? And it's important, and I really hope you can try to meet me. Okay, thanks, bye. No, next paragraph. Truth is often projected as something that is the final word, but nothing is the final word on anything, not even in mathematics. There are defined truths that can be precisely measured, and there are defined personal truths that cannot be measured at all. We call them the same thing, but they feel like opposites. Maybe they are opposite sides of truth, and everyone falls on a different place on the spectrum between which of those is more compelling to them, but also it is not a spectrum, it is a mixture being stirred. This leads to the issue of faith. Many people say they have faith in the truth, and since faith and certainty are mutually exclusive, faith is a way to say something is true without certainty. Although I have never experienced that kind of truth, I would never say that way of experiencing it could not be true, because I have never experienced that perspective, and therefore I cannot be certain it could or could not be anything. I choose to not apply any faith-based version of truth to myself because I am uncomfortable with implications of believing in that kind of truth. If someone can say something is true without certainty, then someone can say anything is true. And if someone can say anything is true, then someone can justify anything. And if someone can justify anything, then someone can justify horrible things. And I do not want horrible things to be justified. So I do not want to assert truth without certainty. Faith is as close to certainty outside of oneself as anyone can get, and therefore faith is as close to the truth as anyone can get. Faith does not make anything true, though. It only makes it true for you, and only true for you is not true unless you have faith. Either way, you can't be certain or have faith for anyone other than yourself, so your truth can only ever apply to you unless you would like to try to force it on someone or manipulate them into it. I would not. My reality is that I approach my art for the reasons I do because those reasons are true for me. But I want my reasons to feel true to others looking at my art. I don't want my art to be alienated. I gotta admit, I partially make art because I yearn to share a sense with others, to feel legitimately connected. I mentioned at the beginning, I feel like the possibility of a connection and shared sense through art is much more likely to happen if my art does not insist on my perspective and instead considers others' perspectives as equally valid, even if not justified. As mentioned above in the section discussing truth without certainty, anything can be justified. This affects my process because anything can be justified at the beginning stages of my exploration of a concept through painting. I am not interested in justifications. I do not want to reach my topic of exploration through a justification. I want to reach it through a feeling that is powerful before I think about it. In this way especially, I consider my paintings to be explorations of subjectivity and objectivity. They are the thoughts I have had because of my time spent with shared structures identified as significant through unshareable feelings. An initial reading of my paintings likely offers the viewer an immediately recognizable image because the artwork so prominently features a literal, credibly shared perspective. Within this image of a shared perspective, though, I attempt to infuse my emotion in a very specific way. Before I paint the representational image, I paint an abstract mess of colors that, to me, communicate what it felt like to be in the represented space. I essentially build the shared perspective on the structure of the feeling and thus offer a second reading, one of an underlying hidden sense that can slowly be picked out from the immediacy of the first reading. My paintings are how I have condensed the subjective and objective into a manageable activity. How then do I describe the condensed image and feeling? The image is the condensed description. The only way to describe it is to re-expand it, and it re-expands into something very big and messy. I've decided to sort through this mess by first finding my intention. I believe my intention is to create art in order to share a sense with others. After considering this intention, however, it became clear I would need to understand what senses I share with myself in order to effectively go about sharing a sense with others. I cannot share something I do not have. If I can be honest with myself about what I share a sense with, then maybe I can share that sense. And that is the ending of part 2 of chapter 1. Part 3 is called In Which I Share a Sense with Myself, and I will continue reading that next video. I essentially outline things that I feel just as real as touching something hot or cold, but instead it's touching a concept, and specifically a concept that I can apply to creating something that I can share with somebody else. Okay, anyway, that's it. Sorry about the intermittent, weird low electrical humming that happened throughout this. I live in a extremely crammed space with a lot of other tenants, and all of our walls are thin, and some of them have AC units that make that noise. And I can't go into their apartment and be like, hey guys, I'm recording a podcast, so can you maybe turn that off? It's just not gonna happen. And also, I think that there is, I don't mind low production value, because to me, a high production value, it means either there are lots of things. It means lots of things. And I don't want to generalize, but I do think that there are a lot of people who have higher production content, who they are welcomed by systems of financial support, whether they were born into that and just it is easier for them to access that in the first place, or somebody saw a good way to make money off of them. And cool, that's I don't want to criticize anybody for supporting themselves. That's not what I'm doing. But if you don't want to plug into the game, but you still want to create things, there are just some little characteristics about what you're going to create that are inevitably going to maybe be different than the creations of people with more financial resources. But I think, that's a representation of just what it would be like if anybody, the average experiencer of this society, were to try and create something. And I think there's value to tapping into. I want a better way of saying that. There's value to swimming around in that muck, swimming in that swamp, swimming in that poverty swamp, which, like, I'm just gonna say, I don't mind. I'm not complaining. I think it's a very good way to use my time and resources to create art that doesn't make me a lot of money, and I have made choices that make that a possibility. Like, I've chosen to not have children, and I choose to not be in relationships that might, I don't know, offer me some financial stability, but in my experience, that's never been mental or emotional stability. So, yeah, I'm doing it as a single childless lady who just really likes to paint. And speaking of, if you're watching, here's about a half hour of my painting process. I sped this up a bit. Okay, I love you. Goodbye.